Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. Today on the podcast, before we get started, I'd like to say I know that we haven't been here for a week, but we've had a very good reason. I have been away working on my new project, Love and Other Delusions, which is my new podcast that is going to drop on October 28. So I wasn't away doing nothing. I was working on a brand new project and I'm really excited about it, but needed the time away to get that off the ground. So I'm back. Everything is fine. And today on the podcast, we are talking about James Hoffmann and the man in the arena. They're kind of the same thing, sort of, but let me explain. The last episode of this podcast was my conversation with James Hoffmann, which, to say stirred the pot in our community is quite the understatement. So I received feedback, both positive and negative, for lack of better words, about that conversation. And I wanted to talk about it with you guys. And I want to talk about the validity of giving feedback and how it's received and when it should be given and when it shouldn't be given, etc., etc. When we talk about this, I'm only ever going to talk about any of this stuff from my personal perspective. And it's important to understand that we all experience business different. But in a coming episode of the podcast, there is a blueprint, and we're going to talk about the blueprint that everyone goes through. But it's things like this that add color to that blueprint. Now, the James Hoffmann conversation came as a culmination for me of a number of things that had happened to me throughout my time as the owner of Elixir Specialty Coffee. The idea of a conversation with James was as an alternative to cancel culture. We had something very important to talk about, something that James and I had a shared experience about, but from different perspectives. And we chose that it was an important thing for us to show up and talk about publicly because we are both intentional about setting a new tone for the coffee industry that encourages independent thinking. Was it an easy conversation to have? Absolutely not. Was it a comfortable conversation to have? Absolutely not. Not for either of us. We spoke for some time after the episode aired live and we both agreed that was hard. We were both very vulnerable. We were both very open. And if you want to get some entertainment, go check out the live chat from that because that was some interesting shit that went down there. Now look, James has his diehard fans. I have my diehard friends. And you can see who's who from the comments. But this wasn't about him versus her kind of a discussion. This was a discussion about exploring something that went down. The videos that we were referencing in the conversation are quite irrelevant. Whether the video was fair or unfair wasn't what James and I were coming to talk about in this conversation. What James and I were coming to talk about was this idea that there is a toxic underpinning in our industry where people feel that it is okay to attack people who are doing something that they don't agree with. Enter the man in the arena. Now, the man in the arena is a quote from Theodore Roosevelt that I use a lot in my business coaching. And I want to read the quote to you now so that we can continue this discussion about the comments and the way that people have reacted to that conversation and what that conversation was about. Okay. The man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better, The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. This is an important thing for all of us to have in our consciousness, this quote, especially in the coffee industry. Why? We don't encourage a culture of innovation. We don't encourage a culture of doing hard shit and celebrating the people who do hard shit. We are an industry of many opinions that are not focused at all about how we encourage and motivate further the endeavor of people who do dare to get into the arena. And so, if you're somebody who has an opinion about what I'm doing or what James is doing or what anybody is doing, I'm here to tell you that if you don't have that opinion from inside the arena on the actual arena floor, I'm not going to pay attention to you. If anything has come from the conversation that I've had with James and the result and the consequence of that whole process, it has been that unless you have at the very least dared to back yourself and do hard shit, you couldn't in any way understand that conversation that James and I had. I received so many encouraging messages from people privately, and we received a bunch of comments and emails from people publicly stating how much they vehemently disagreed with me and found me disgusting and found me jealous and found me a whole bunch of things. But here's the difference between those two things. The people who comment that way, you can tell that they've never been in the arena. Because nobody who's ever been in the arena would ever speak that way to somebody who they know has done the very hard things to end up with the scars and the battles, the battle marks of what it is to be in the arena. It's one of the very, I guess the word is, it's one of the badges of honor that you get to wear. You learn compassion and empathy for other people who dare to enter the arena. So, to those of you who have sent me messages of spite and of disgrace and of all of that, thank you. You made the point that I needed to learn. I've been in the arena many times, and I'm proud of that. And you can't take it away from me with your viciousness or with your hate. For those of you who sent messages of encouragement, messages of gratitude, thank you. You've shown me who you are as people in the arena. I'm proud of the work that I've done. I'm proud of having the courage to step into a very difficult conversation in the hope that it will encourage other people to do the same. And no amount of hate is going to take that away from me. I want to give an enormous amount of gratitude to my friends who, particularly my friends in the mastermind group, who encouraged me and supported me and who just stood with me before I had the conversation, during the conversation, and afterwards. Because it wasn't fun reading those comments, but they didn't let me falter. They're people who are also in the arena. They understand how hard this shit is. So, until you've been in the arena, I encourage you to sit down and listen. On that note, have an amazing rest of your day, friends. Peace, love, and peanut butter.